Hello and welcome. I call the channel the Jungle Nook, and although today we will be doing some indoor winter gardening, I got some plants that I propagated from cuttings about maybe a year ago. It was late winter, early spring. And I propagated them through cuttings, and today we're going to be up-potting them into some hanging baskets using a true organic potting mix. And I'm gonna show how I make that and explain why I'm using that specifically in my hanging baskets. As well as I have a few other plants here that I wanna get prepared for a future propagation. And I'm gonna do all that in a minute. But first, I just wanted to take this opportunity to talk to you for a minute about why I consider winter the winter growing season. Now, you may have heard me say in other videos that our houseplants, and specifically our tropical varieties, do not go dormant in the winter because not only are they not experiencing these winter-like conditions outside, but like our tropical varieties, that's not part of their normal yearly life cycle. They don't actually get a true winter like a lot of us in different hemispheres or at higher elevations where perhaps it gets below freezing, you get a snow cap or even a permafrost, all of which I experience here. But plants will go through semi-dormancy, and they'll do that for a variety of reasons. Adverse weather conditions, wherever they're from. Let's say it's the dry season, or they're experiencing a drought, or even in the winter, reduced amount of daylight. Really cold temperatures, unusually hot temperatures. There's a variety of reasons for a plant to experience semi-dormancy, including inadequate nutrients. Now in the winter, when there's less hours of natural daylight available, a lot of our houseplants will go through a phase of semi-dormancy, but the plant is still actually engaging in all of the different functions that a plant will normally be engaging in on a day-to-day basis. But you may see that the new growth is developing much slower, or even has appeared to stop growing. And that's totally normal in the winter with less hours of daylight, because the plant's going to be using the available light and the energy that it's able to produce through photosynthesis to hold on to and maintain the existing foliage that it has, so that it has an adequate amount of foliage in the spring when the days start to get longer. The plant can sense what season it's in primarily by how long the day is, how much natural daylight it's getting. As the days get shorter, it knows it's coming into winter, and then in late winter, early spring, the days are getting longer, and it knows that it's spring, and it knows that summer's coming, and summer and fall is when it's going to have the greatest access, not only to longer hours of daylight, but the daylight will be more intense and more efficient for the plant to engage in photosynthesis. But in the winter, when they may be going through a semi-dormancy period, they still require an adequate amount of water as well as nutrients. I know we're taught reduce the amount of water and reduce or even don't fertilize in the winter, and then start fertilizing again in spring, summer, and fall. And in springs when you start giving them more water because they're going to require it, and they are. But they also require an adequate amount of water and nutrients when they're going through semi-dormancy. That's because the plant is still engaging in all the other functions that you don't see that it's engaging in. Plants use hormones to know what is going on and to sense the environment that it's in. It's through the hormones that a plant knows the days are getting longer and shorter, so it knows what season it is and what to do to get prepared for the next season. It also knows if there's moisture in the soils, so it knows to begin to absorb that moisture, because the moisture is what actually absorbs the nutrients. So the plant knows that there is nutrient-rich moisture to be absorbed. It also knows where in the pot this nutrient is, and it will grow its roots out, looking for it. All these different functions, take different types of nutrients. Nearly all plants use the exact same type of nutrients, and they use them in the exact same way. Each function of the plant is using pretty much the same type of nutrients, just in different amounts. So it's important to be continuing to give your plant an all-purpose fertilizer throughout the winter. It's through the hormones that it knows if perhaps there's an insect problem or fungus, so that it knows to begin to produce chemicals and compounds like caffeine and nicotine. Plants produce those to fight off like insects. But it needs the nutrients to have a strong immune system so that it can produce these different compounds and chemicals, which also take nutrients. The immune system, that needs nutrients, and you need a strong immune system in case the plant gets a disease. There's all kinds of functions that the plant engages in. Root growth, new foliage, repairing damage. A plant needs to be able to have an adequate amount of hydration within the plant in order to move compounds and nutrients from one place to another, which is extremely important when the temperature is low or high, or there's fluctuations in the humidity, if it's being attacked by pests. My point is, in the winter, even though your plants are growing slower, they're not dormant like in an area where I live outdoors. There are no plants really out there with foliage. We have some varieties that do hold on and maintain its foliage, but they're not actively growing in the winter. Right now outside it is 15 degrees Fahrenheit outside. I got some clips. I'll show a few clips of what it looks like outside here in a minute. If you reduce the amount of water that you are giving your plant and the nutrients in the winter, when you move your plant back in from outside for the winter, or maybe your plant stayed in here all winter, with that reduced amount of light, it's going to be focusing on holding onto and maintaining whatever existing foliage it has that it grew throughout summer and fall, and try its best to hold on to that until spring, so it has the most amount of foliage that it can to be able to absorb all that sunlight, which each day it's getting a little bit longer. Summer and fall are really very robust growing seasons. And when we move our plant in late fall and in our house going into early winter, you're still going to see some pretty robust growth. But eventually that's going to slow. And you want the plant in its best position come spring. You don't want to be letting your soil dry out and starving your plant over winter, because when spring comes, you want it all ready to start pushing out new growth, not repairing the root structure or having to replace a bunch of growth that it lost over the winter because it didn't have the moisture and nutrients to maintain it. Back in the house now, this is the room that I refer to as the Nook, which is the channel name, the Jungle Nook. This is my main growing room. It's my largest room. But I do have a smaller room that I refer to as the Mini Nook, which is right in here. And this is where we're going to be up potting some plants into some hanging baskets. Now, these are all vining plants. I took some cuttings off of some of my house plants, some of the vining plants that get nodes. And everywhere there's a node, a leaf grows out, and that's where the root structure will grow from. And all I did, doing all this one-handed, all I did was went through and made some cuttings, and then I simply stuck these nodes right into the soil about 6 months ago. Made sure that I had the node itself in contact with the soil. And I kept them hydrated throughout the spring and summer. I think I fertilized them a few times too. But that's how I started all of these right here. Even though it's winter, I am up potting them right now. This is a Swiss cheese monstera. It's about 6 months old since I put the cuttings in. It was a single leaf with each node, and it's actually grown quite a bit. I'm surprised. I'm actually surprised at how quick this plant grew for me. I got some more plants over here. I started at the same time and the same way. We have some pothos, which is a green on green variegation. And next to that, I don't think these are pearls of jade because pearls of jade have speckling. Their variegation speckled. This is more of a brush stroke variegation. So I'm thinking it's probably Enjoy, or it could even be Glacier Pothos. And I got some more Monstera. I can't think of the type right at the moment. I'll put it in text. But they got some other Monstera right here. And all of these are going to be getting up potted into a true organic potting mix. And what I mean by a true organic potting mix is this tote right here. Although probably 60% of this is just recycled Miracle-Gro potting mix, which is primarily peat moss with a little bit of perlite in it. This stuff right here, yeah, it's organic. The peat moss, just like coco coir. But peat moss and coco coir, although they retain moisture very well, they're a soft medium for the roots to be able to grow through. It also does not release nutrients as it breaks down. No nutrients in any real significant way or amount. To achieve that, I have added, here I'll show you, I have added some manure. Manure will release a lot of nutrients for your plants. Here's what it is. It's just, I have at least 2, maybe 3 bags of this product right here. It's a Scott's brand product, but it's manure. Manure and a really good rich compost will break down relatively quickly and release a lot of really good nutrients for your plants, and it will release 50% of those nutrients in the first year. After the first year, it's only releasing maybe 10 to 5% or even less as each year goes by. And that's because all of the smaller pieces of organic material are going to break down relatively quickly. And all you're going to be left with over time is more chunkier stuff like this right here. And this will take a real long time to break down. And it won't break down into as nutritious of a material or a nutrient as you may think. Now, like I said, within 1 year, 50% of the nutrients from that manure will be released. But also the volume of soil will also be reduced because it's getting broken down and consumed and actually becomes a part of the plant. You won't see this too much if you're just using coco coir or peat moss and you're feeding your plant with a liquid fertilizer, because it doesn't break down very quickly as opposed to, like, you know, manure and compost. And I like to use this in a hanging basket because if you look over here, I started this basket at the same time. And when I did this, the soil level was almost up to the top. And there's quite a bit of a gap in here. It's settled like 2 inches. It has settled some, yes, but it's also been broken down, and I've lost 2, maybe 3 inches of space. And this is great because I can now add fresh material into this void and then place additional nodes into that soil, because all of this original growth over time, as the years go by, these plants here, these leaves are going to age out and you'll have a bald spot. But by putting those new nodes in, it will fill it back in. New vines will start to grow down and it will continue to be nice and lush. Now, one thing that I'm going to add to this, because they are my hanging baskets, so I'm going to take this recycled potting mix, which is why you're seeing a lot of like roots and things in here. I'm going to take this right here, which I've also added the manure to, and I'm going to add some vermiculite to this because this is going in my hanging baskets, which are up towards the ceiling, and they tend to dry out more. A lot of my hanging baskets, you know, they have a lot of growth. They go all the way from the ceiling to the floor, and then will even spread out across the floor a couple of feet. They really use up a lot of nutrients and especially moisture out of the soil quick because of how much plant material there is compared to what's in the pot. So what I'm going to be doing is adding some vermiculite into this right here. And the big difference between vermiculite and perlite is that perlite will actually allow water to pass through it, whereas vermiculite will absorb and hold that moisture longer. Both products, perlite and vermiculite, are lightweight, and they help to prevent compaction within the soil, as well as to provide good aeration. It's real important to have good aeration in your soil because the plants do require, the roots require some oxygen getting to them. Add a little more. But yeah, perlite and vermiculite, they work pretty much the same. The big difference is vermiculite will actually absorb and hold moisture longer, and that's what I want in my hanging baskets at the ceiling. Now here's the hanging baskets that I'm using. They have a lot of slits down at the bottom there for drainage, so that the soil, as the water, the excess moisture drains through the soil, it can actually come down here into this tray, and I don't got to worry about that excess water draining onto the floor in the house. That looks good. I'm also going to hydrate this material. I just put in peat moss, coco coir, and vermiculite. Takes a lot of moisture to really hydrate it. So I'm just doing a little pre-hydration right there. When I put these in here, the soil was much higher. This was a real nice organic material too. You see how it's dropped down. Let's see. Right there. Just cut a vine off of it is all. And I'll get the nodes. And I'm just going to start planting them in here. I'll even put a little more material on it. So these two baskets do not look as nice as you might have thought, but over the next week or two, these leaves will move and position themselves to catch the light, and they will look much better. Both of these plants right here, both of these pots. And I have two other plants in this room that I want to propagate. Here's one of them right here. Eventually I want to make a hanging basket with these right here. And I believe this is a pothos. And I have another type of monstera over here. And I want to get both of these ready for propagation. And here's how I'm going to do that. So I'm taking both of these plants and I am just setting them in here. If I can get in here. Setting them in here right on the soil. That's all I'm doing. And this will start to root right into the soil. And then I can take the cuttings where the nodes are, which will already have roots, soil roots on them, and I can start propagating this that way. I'm going to do the same with the other plant as well. This one's just in a little vase, but I do believe this is all I have of this variety. I really like it a lot. And this is how I'm starting the propagation process with these. They'll grow roots much quicker instead of just cutting the nodes off and sticking them in the ground. So the whole plant's still attached. When I make the cuttings, they'll already have the roots, so they'll end up growing much quicker in the new hanging basket. They'll probably stay just like this for probably a month, maybe a whole month or even longer. But I should be able to get about 20 new vines off of that one runner there, which will be more than sufficient for a basket.